Hi, thank you for joining us on our Friday TNT. Now, being Friday, tomorrow will be our live program. That's 1 hour between 9 and 10 a.m. I think it's probably going to be a little bit contentious tomorrow, so let's see what happens. But your involvement, your comments, your questions are what makes the Saturday morning program. So I invite you to drop in if you do have time tomorrow. Now, a couple of fairly big stories today in Thailand, and we'll cover them from different points of view, and naturally we'll be interested to hear your comments as well. Let's get into this first one. And just some different headlines. BBC, Thailand deports dozens of Uyghurs to China. The Guardian, Thailand deports dozens of Uyghurs to China despite torture fears. CNN, alarm as activists warn Thailand may have secretly deported Uyghurs back to, that'd be China. And New York Times, much the same headline, saying despite pleas. And then Reuters, Thailand sends 40 Uyghurs back to China after decade in detention. The ABC in Australia, Thailand has deported 40 Uyghurs to China at the request of Beijing, officials say. And Amnesty International saying the deportation of Uyghurs to China unimaginably cruel. Well, plenty of commentary on the matter. Let's go back to 2 a.m. yesterday morning and see the way all this unfolded. And some excellent coverage on the Chaos on English Facebook page. They noted that a Fair Party MP posted photos on social media yesterday asking why the repatriation of 48 Uyghur people was done in secrecy around 2:14 a.m, with detention van windows covered with black tape and other vehicles not allowed to follow on the elevated expressway. But the National Police Chief yesterday said the repatriation, and he's saying 40 Uyghurs from Thailand to China, was done in accordance with human rights principles. He added the van's windows were covered with black tape and police logos covered to prevent the transport from affecting the traffic. But as their senior writer Prawit Rojanapruk noted, traffic at 2 a.m? Then later on, the police chief claimed the Chinese authorities had provided written assurances that all deported Uyghurs would be safe, which brings us to this coverage. The Chinese embassy in Bangkok posted a message and photos on Facebook yesterday that 40 ethnic Uyghurs had been repatriated back to China after being detained in Thailand for 10 years. In a message in Thai, the embassy stressed that this is a joint effort in cracking down on illegal entry into Thailand, and that these people have boarded a chartered flight back to Xinjiang to lead a normal life. Some, of course, will claim that those photos have been staged. We recall the last time that Thailand deported Uyghurs. The photos weren't terribly flattering, with hoods over the Uyghurs' heads, and Chinese police flanked either side of them as they were sitting on that plane. We go to some coverage from Amnesty International. Deportation of Uyghurs to China, unimaginably cruel. And quoting the Amnesty International China director, Sarah Brooks, she says the forcible return of these men, or indeed any Uyghurs, to China would place them at risk of serious human rights violations. We urge the government of Thailand to clarify their status, and their ordeal is already chilling. They fled repression in China only to find themselves arbitrarily detained in Thailand for more than a decade. And then the Thai government should have protected these men, but instead it's willfully exposed them to these grave risks. Photos there of the Thai detention centre in Bangkok where the Uyghurs were housed. And just some background, the men deported, this is yesterday, are among about 300 Uyghurs who were apprehended by the Thai authorities back in 2014 after they'd fled persecution and discrimination in China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. A total of 109 people from the group were deported to China in 2015. And those photos on the plane will forever haunt the Thai government. We go to some coverage in Bangkok Post. US condemns Thailand's return of 40 Uyghurs to China. So as the news started leaking out about this deportation yesterday morning, the world started to react. And US Secretary of State Marco Rubio yesterday condemned Thailand's return of at least 40 Uyghurs to China, where Washington says members of the Muslim group have faced genocide. And we should note that, to his credit, this has been a long-term campaign by the Senator Marco Rubio for a long time. And the move by Thailand, a US ally, This article originally published by Reuters for, well, mostly a US audience. And the move by Thailand came despite urging by UN human rights experts not to return the Uyghurs the Thai government's held in detention for a decade. And Rubio, who was a staunch advocate for Uyghurs when he served as a US senator, reiterated that Beijing's treatment of the group has amounted to genocide and crimes against humanity, a designation the US first made in the waning hours of President Donald Trump's first term in 2021. And given the events of the past 14 days, I'm sure the hypocrisy of some of these comments won't go unnoticed. We go to some other coverage. From Thai PBS World, Thailand should be condemned for sending Uyghurs back to China. This is from an NGO who said Thailand must face global condemnation for its decision to forcibly return Uyghur detainees to China from a Bangkok detention centre. This from Rushan Abbas, the executive director of the Campaign for Uyghurs. And she said these deportations expose the ugly reality that for many governments, human lives are negotiable and are traded away for political or economic interests. Well, she didn't hold back. According to Abbas, the forced deportation is a death sentence carried out in plain sight. And she said Thailand's decision, made under pressure from the Chinese government, sends a chilling message to other countries that no Uyghur seeking safety is truly safe. So that story there covered from a lot of different points of view. The reality, though, is that those 40 Uyghurs are now back in China, and the headlines, whilst big and bold today, will be forgotten tomorrow. Acknowledging the support and the sponsorship of 5 Star Marine at 5starmarinephuket.com, let's get into some other stories. And that tourism tax, whatever happened to that tourism tax? We go to Nation Thailand and their headline, tourism tax to be introduced during upcoming high season. So the last high season in the rear-view mirror, we're now looking to, well, November, December this year. And the tourism tax of 300 baht a person will come into force for foreign tourists by the end of this year, according to the Tourism and Sports Minister. He expects the tourism tax scheme to come into effect during Thailand's high season later in the year, provided the scheme is endorsed via publication in the Royal Gazette in March. So it seems the wheels are in motion. Let's see if we can find some details. Oh dear, details of the scheme are not as yet clear, according to the minister, and he said the ministry is working on linking data to the Thailand Digital Arrival Card to facilitate tax collection. The TDAC will come into force on May the 1st. And he said that foreign travellers arriving by air will be charged 300 baht per person per trip, but land and water, they'll also be charged 300 baht, but would be entitled to enter several times within 30 to 60 days. And he said the ministry will summarise this issue at a later date to ensure that all foreigners using a passport to visit Thailand will be able to access life and accident insurance. And several embassies have confirmed that this scheme is a good plan as it will allow travellers to access insurance, and he emphasised that the tourism tax system will be a one-stop service to facilitate travellers. So it does look like the Thai government are introducing this as a de facto compulsory health insurance for tourists coming into Thailand. Also, sure, there'll be plenty of people who are on an annual visa who'll be saying, oh, do I have to pay this when I come into Thailand? There was talk earlier about this only being applicable to people who are coming in on a visa exemption. Those details are not available at the moment. So don't bother asking me because I simply don't know. As we head to the borders of Thailand, the story published in khaosodenglish.com, whereabouts of 20 Japanese nationals from Myanmar scam centre unknown. The whereabouts of these 20 Japanese nationals believed to have been present at a scam operating centre in eastern Myanmar are unknown. And of them, 10 may be among foreigners who fled from the fraud base near Myawaddy, a town bordering Thailand, during Tuesday's search. And since January, local armed groups, including the BGF, have taken into protective custody over 7,000 foreigners believed to have been confined at phone scam facilities, according to Thai authorities. And this one, Joint Team cracks down on illegal cross-border cables, published in Bangkok Post. And the NBTC plans to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Highways to jointly inspect and suppress the illegal laying of cross-border cable networks utilised by cyber criminals. And this would be covering areas of around 17 cross-border bridges nationwide. And then it talks about the inspection and the removal of 3 big dishes. And in this case, those 3 dishes have been used to transmit Wi-Fi over the border from Thailand into Laos. But the question remains, is enough being done? That's been addressed by this article, also in the Bangkok Post. Government's scam centre crackdown not enough, warns Rangsaman. And an ongoing effort targeting scam compounds along Thailand's border with Myanmar has led to only a small proportion of workers there being pulled out. And People's Party Deputy Leader Rangsaman Rome, Thailand's leading voice in calls for action against border boiler rooms that have defrauded Thais of hundreds of millions of US dollars, in an interview told Reuters that 300,000 people were operating in Myawaddy scam compounds and less than 10,000 have been rescued. And that number correlates with the sort of numbers I'm hearing from a lot of NGOs I've spoken to about this matter. And quoting Rangsaman, it means like the empire of the scam is still there, we're just shaking them. And he says about 40 scam compounds existed there, but he didn't cite the evidence. If we just stop, he said, they can continue their business. But Thai authorities are not doing enough, he says, to take down the kingpins running these scam operations or Thai officials complicit in allowing their expansion. And he speaks about Colonel Sorchit Tu, a Myanmar warlord who controls areas around Myawaddy. And quoting Rangsaman, he says, we know that he has a big connection with the Thai side. And the Bangkok Post caption, runs Scam Centre Hub. And he finishes by saying it's time to stop the corruption in Thailand. So, I'm sure there'll be quite a lot to be said about those stories today, but hopefully you're a bit more up to date with some of the stories making headlines in Thailand. Covered a lot of issues, a lot of varied issues this week, so thanks for following the program. The very least you could do if you do tune in each day is subscribe to the channel. Hope to see you tomorrow for the live show. Thanks for watching.